Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Melanie Cassar, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flying Officer Jack Gordy. We warmly welcome the family of Private Francis Pyburn Rooke, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Good afternoon. Today we remember and pay tribute to Francis Pyburn Rooke. Francis Rooke was born on the 30th of May 1883 in the Sydney suburb of St Leonards. One of 10 children born to Thomas and Sarah Rooke, in 1911 he married Priscilla May Fleming in St Peters, and December the following year the couple had a child, a daughter named Marie Hazel. In 1913, Francis and his wife separated and became estranged. At the outbreak of war in 1914, he was working as a carter, transporting goods by wagon or cart around Sydney's suburbs. Francis Rooke enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 23rd of January 1915. He was assigned to the 5th Regiment of the 1st Battalion and began a short period of training in Australia. He listed his estranged wife as his next of kin, allotting the maximum 3/5 of his pay to her and their child Marie. He embarked for active service from Sydney on the 25th of June 1945 on board the troopship Ceramic. Private Rooke joined his unit on the Gallipoli Peninsula on the 5th of August 1915. The following day, he took part in his first and only major battle of the war at Lone Pine. The attack at Lone Pine was planned as part of a diversion to cover Allied units attacking positions at Chanock Blair and Hill 971. In the early hours of the evening of the 6th of August 1915, the 1st Battalion, including Private Rooke, charged Turkish defensive positions at Lone Pine. Upon reaching the Turkish lines, advancing troops were met with trenches that had been covered by pine logs, offering protection to the enemy and severely hindering the Australian advance. Troops were forced to break through the log roof, often engaging the enemy in hand-to-hand combat. Private William Stenning later described the battle. The scene in the trenches by this time was an awful one. We were here and there and everywhere dodging bombs, and in some cases catching them as they came in and throwing them back before they had time to explode. The dead in the trenches was beginning to pile up. Each time we repulsed the Turks, but with what loss? There were poor chaps who had their heads blown off, split in two, and sides blown out, and otherwise horribly mutilated. The scene was one I shall never forget to the end of my days. Though the main objective was taken in 20 minutes, 4 days of intense fighting followed, costing more than 2,000 Australian casualties. Private Rooke survived the horrendous fighting at Lone Pine and was relieved from the front lines. On the 13th of August, his battalion returned to the trenches at Lone Pine to defend the ground. The section of the front occupied by Rooke and his comrades was under heavy Turkish artillery fire. The battalion war diary recorded that the 1st Battalion was under the heaviest bombardment yet experienced since occupying the position. The bombardment continued for over 2 hours. Just after midnight, the enemy attacked. Though the Australians successfully repulsed the attack, they suffered 13 casualties. Among the dead was Private Francis Rooke. He was 32 years old. His family later remembered him in a memoriam placed in the newspaper which read, "He died in the cause of freedom." Rooke's body was never recovered from the battlefield. Today, he is commemorated on the Lone Pine Memorial at Gallipoli, amongst almost 5,000 others who have no known grave. His name is listed on the honour roll to my right, among the 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Francis Pyburn Rooke, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave here this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We appreciate your visit despite the challenges posed by COVID and wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.